Are we really doing this again? Disclaimer. Please do not harass or try to intimidate Ash, Poopy Butthole, or any other users featured in this video, regardless of your opinion on them. This video is meant to be a critique, commentary, and explanation on the situation, not an attack on anybody, and I do not condone or encourage harassment in any way. A trigger warning will be listed at the beginning of the description for sensitive subjects covered in this video, so please check that now before continuing. Sashley, also known as Ash, is a popular YouTube animator with almost 1 million subscribers known primarily online for her short animations of song clips known as animation memes. Since her joining the platform, she's found herself caught up in dramas ranging from when she was 11 all the way up until her current age, which is 16. This video is a collaborative effort between me and Ash, as well as a group of both of our friends, adding their input in various places of the script, to debunk false narratives spread by these dramas and provide an explanation for why certain things may have been said. The initial drama with Ash began very early on when she was 11 because her art style had many striking similarities to another YouTuber at the time who was known as Casual Susan, but I believe now goes by Casual Jax. Ash appeared to be taking very heavy inspiration from Casual Jax's art style, which led to arguments between them, and these arguments tended to be very vile in nature, including death threats, mass recording, and mutual harassment. Eventually, when so much of their arguing became public, both users agreed to forgive and forget about each other and move on. Neither person was in the right here, but as they were very young and did not know how to treat people online at the time, it's excusable. Most of their arguing was made public to their masses of subscribers, which is the only reason it's so memorable today. The next big drama hit when a user, who I will not name because it's no longer relevant, made a call-out video on Ash when she was 13 that detailed several points that made Ash look very bad. These points included accusations of pedophilia, sexuality, cheating, and her usage of slurs. Many of these points were brought on by Ash's boyfriend at the time, who she is no longer with, because he felt their relationship was no longer going his way. After the call-out video blew up, this ex-boyfriend apologized to Ash for leaking screenshots so impulsively and backed down for the most part, but the drama continued until another user by the name of Pondersprocket made a video almost 2 hours long that defended and explained Ash's actions, effectively halting the whole situation. Her video will be linked in the description because many of her points are still relevant now. After that, when Ash was 14, she once again began taking heavy inspiration from another user's art style by the name of Tiff. The situation was blown up because Tiff made a public post saying that she was not comfortable with Ash clearly and so heavily taking inspiration from her art style, but as this was made public, this led to many of Tiff's fans making call-outs on Ash, accusing her of tracing Tiff and copying every single facet of her work. This drama escalated and continued snowballing and piling up until a user named Streamline Workshop posted a video defending Ash. Her video will also be linked in the description, as some of it does once again overlap with the current situation. Now, beginning about 2 months ago, a user by the name of Poopy Butthole, made several very short videos, most being about a minute long, that showed a whole bunch of screenshots that painted Ash in a very bad manner. Some of the accusations lobbed at her included, but are not limited to, racism, homophobia, fatphobia, ableism, pedophilia, and sexualization. This video attempts to explain and defend Ash from these allegations. Before I begin, I would like to make note that this video is not me white knighting Ash. This was made in collaboration with her to dispel false narratives. There are instances where I will not defend Ash in this video because some of it isn't justifiable. What is justifiable, however, is the extraordinary amount of fake, cropped, and out-of-context screenshots circling around the internet right now, and the ones that are real don't hold Ash as the sole perpetrator either. Queerphobia. To start off with, there are screenshots of Ash supposedly using the F-slur in a derogatory manner, while painting Ash to be a cishet woman. The intention of showing these screenshots was to imply that Ash was homophobic using terms and slurs she could not reclaim. Before I explain why Ash was using the F-slur, I will acknowledge that people are under the assumption that Ash is a cisgender heterosexual woman. I understand why people think this way, as Ash has never publicized her sexuality or gender identity, but when I asked Ash about this, she said she was okay with me sharing, so I will explain. Ash is non-binary as well as pan and demi-romantic. The reason that most people don't know this is because she's uncomfortable with going so public about it, afraid of what people might say. I wasn't so eager to add this into the video as someone's sexuality is private information, but it does matter to the allegations against her. Ash has released the screenshot of what I just showed publicly now as well, but to clear up the people saying that this came out of nowhere and is just for damage control, I will show some additional screenshots she asked me to show. As you can see from these screenshots, Ash has been thinking about being non-binary and pan for at least a year now. This is not a new development. It would be quite a stretch to say that she's been planting these seeds for defense for a year, especially because there's no way she could have known this information would have needed to come out. As for the incriminating screenshots, Ash has explained to me in this screenshot, and I will explain it now. Back in January, Ash had a toxic friend who would often vent to her, and he used his religion as an excuse for being highly homophobic. He'd say that he felt like an F-slur for venting about it, and Ash would respond that he should only feel this way for being so nihilistic about life, since this was negative in his eyes. She has also admitted that maybe she should not have been friends with this person in the first place, and she is sorry. She does have a tendency to befriend bad people, and she is working on it. Now, the entire situation is very muddied. As a man who is attracted to men, I feel comfortable expressing my thoughts on the subject of the slur. Ash should not have been using the slur in a derogatory manner. That isn't debatable. Reclaiming slurs isn't a matter of who can use it as an insult, it's about turning a negative into a positive by the people who are affected by the negative. However, like mentioned before, Ash is non-binary and pan. This leads to the question, can Ash reclaim the F-slur? Most people who are against Ash right now are saying that only men who are attracted to men can use the slur, as historically that is who was originally affected by the slur. However, the slur being exclusive to men is now a dated definition, as queerphobes worldwide now use the slur to degrade and dehumanize anyone under the queer umbrella, not just men. That means that if you were to say that only men can use a slur, you would be excluding every non-straight woman and non-binary person who have ever been called the slur in a derogatory manner from turning their negative experience into something lighter. Essentially, saying that only men can use the slur is exclusionist in nature and hurts more people than it would help. Obviously, my opinion is not fact and you are free to think whatever you'd like, but most people today are inclusionist and would allow anyone queer to use the slur, and that is how Ash and the people she is around view things. If you don't want Ash calling you the slur, you will not be called the F-slur by Ash. Because if you don't want to interact with her, she will not interact with you, and therefore she will not call you the slur. Ash has left a note on this topic which I will read aloud now. I don't mind people coming to me to educate me in what I've done wrong and how to go about it in the future. The issue on making things public beforehand is you're not leaving room for growth and change on said person. This can be applied to anybody. It really isn't hard to have a civil conversation with another human letting them know what they're doing wrong. If they continue, it really is on them. While my sexuality and identity was revealed way before have saying slurs, I genuinely believed it was okay to use amongst friends. R slur/ableism. The F-slur is not the only slur Ash has been accused of using inappropriately. I do not want to share this information, as again, it is private information that does not affect the public, but I suppose it is necessary here. Ash has been diagnosed as autistic along with several other disorders. The R slur has historically been mainly used to degrade and discriminate against autistic people as well as people with Down syndrome. Both Ash and I are artistic and able to reclaim the slur and speak on matters regarding the slur and relating topics. Even with this in mind, Ash could still be under fire for using the slur inappropriately, as she's been seen numerous times using the slur as an insult, which is not how slurs are generally accepted to be reclaimed. Ash has made a statement on this. So, even with the fact that she can reclaim the slur in mind, she has still apologized and made note of how she can fix her behavior. She says she will not be using the word like that in the future, so we can only wait to see if this is true. Conclusion for this section. Ash has acknowledged that she was using the R slur poorly and apologized. She will be making an effort not to use the term in such way in the future. N-word/racism. The big bulk of this drama has to do with Ash's use of the N-word and other racial comments. I will start off by bringing up her discussion of the BLM movement, then move on to other points. In this screenshot that was leaked, Ash was seen discussing BLM and other race-related topics in the DMs of who we can assume was one of her friends at the time. Before I analyze the screenshot further, I would like to make note that throughout the entire screenshot, it looks like Ash is responding to someone else's active messages in the conversation. However, you can only see what Ash is saying. This means that the other messages were cropped, edited out, or deleted by the other user participant in this conversation. The chance that the other person was saying something to coerce Ash into saying certain things that she didn't fully mean is there, but without the other messages, we have no way of knowing for sure. Just keep in mind that the other person may be fully culpable in this situation just the same as Ash would be. With that said, the first thing in that screenshot I want to touch on is where Ash said, "the way they speak," too, implying that she didn't like the way black people spoke, i.e. AAVE. Ash has clarified this to me. She explained to me in the screenshot here that she meant TikTokers, not black people, in that message, as they were on the subject of how bad TikTok is. Now, as seen here, Poopy Butthole has tried to say that Ash was still calling out black people because black people use TikTok. However, they neglect to mention that a good majority of people who use AAVE on TikTok are white people misusing the slang and making fools of themselves. White people misusing AAVE isn't a new thing, and they almost always look silly when they do it, which would hypothetically make Ash justified in saying she hates the way TikTokers speak. To paraphrase, I hate the way white people on TikTok misuse AAVE without understanding it. Hypocritical, but would make much more sense considering Ash has no historical issue with AAVE. I will cover Ash's misusage of AAVE later on in this section. Moving on from that portion, she also says something about, quote, white racism. To be honest, I'm not really sure what Ash meant here. White people have never faced systematic racism or oppression. White people have never been hunted down, enslaved, had their rights suppressed, been driven out of their homes, or forcibly separated from the rest of the population simply for being white. In most cases, white people have always been the people in power, with the most control over their government, although this hasn't always been the case everywhere. So in a political sense, white racism does not exist and has never previously existed. To be concise, white people have never faced oppression strictly for their race, and they will therefore certainly not experience racism in the way people of color have. So yes, Ash was in the wrong for claiming that white racism was a thing, even if that wasn't her intention. On to the main issue people are having. Ash talked about her opinion of BLM in someone's DMs as a white person. Clearly, the screenshot has much corrupt context, but it also didn't go in depth with how Ash feels about the Black Lives Matter movement. Here's a screenshot that goes more in depth with what she was talking about. Ash believes BLM is a good movement with a good cause. Ash also believes that the movement got exploited. People began using the movement for personal gain, people started riots and assaults, there was misuse of charity money, etc. She believes in BLM's message. All she meant within that screenshot is that people began turning the movement into a horrific misideal of what it initially was. How anyone, including me, feels about BLM may not align with Ash's opinion, but that's not the issue here. The biggest issue that people are having from what I can find is that Ash was a white person speaking on BLM when she isn't affected by the organization in the slightest. I don't think Americans realize just how much they affect the rest of the world. When something significant happens within Americans' politics, the rest of the world has been influenced by that for centuries. The actions of America's government can influence other governments all around the world, and the cities of America can influence so many other cities. So when a big movement like BLM comes up, that's sure to get the rest of the world talking, whether they're directly affected or not. Ash wasn't even making a public statement about her opinions on BLM either. She didn't say that she thought people should or shouldn't stop supporting it. It was a private discussion that was never intended to be shared, nor was it meant to fully reflect Ash's opinion. So no, Ash should not have been discussing BLM since she is uneducated, but it's not something we should be getting so worked up over either. BLM is something people are going to discuss in private. As long as she's not making a public statement directly saying people should not support BLM, the issue here is extremely minimal, although still present. Let's get on to Ash's supposed use of the N-word, screenshot by screenshot. This one is obviously fake. It doesn't even have a date. Ash cannot be held accountable for something she literally did not say. This one confused the hell out of me, so I actually went back and checked. Turns out it is real. However, it's extremely cropped and the entire context is cut. Here's the full screenshot. As you can see, it was just a typo for saying the word no. Not exactly racism. This one is also faked. I checked. Alright, this one got me concerned. I went to Ash about it, and we ended up having a longer conversation than I initially thought we would, so I'm not going to show the full thing. But when I asked for a comment, statement, or defense, she told me she didn't exactly know what to think. The person she was actually talking to in these screenshots was actually agreeing with her and encouraging her to hold these views. so if we assume she had little to no prior knowledge of AAVE, we can piece together that she was possibly being manipulated into having racist views, since she had nothing else to go off at the time. She is clearly very confused, and currently no one's making any attempt to actually explain things to her. I did my best to explain what AAVA is, I linked some resources and such, and it explained why people were taking such issue with it, but ultimately I had to admit in this conversation that my words should be taken with a pound of salt because I am white. I did attempt to look through her comments to see if anyone took any time to explain what was happening to her, but none of them bothered to gather that maybe she wasn't even educated about the topic in the first place. I'm not sure if this is making any sense, so I'll attempt to summarize all that. I fully believe that Ash is in the wrong for making fun of AAVE, and she has even agreed that she's in the wrong. However, she cannot change what she doesn't know is wrong, and since no one is attempting to explain what AAVE is and how it works to her, she cannot make a full statement. I encourage comments right now from Black people who are educated on their dialect to try and explain the details and nuances if they can, as I think that would be extremely beneficial for both Ash and me. But if you can DM her somewhere, that would also be a huge help. No pressure though, as it's never your responsibility to educate the uninformed. So yes, Ash was in the wrong for that. She just can't make a real apology statement until she understands what she's talking about. If she attempted to, I'm sure it would ring hollow, so don't pressure her until she's ready, please. It was really hard to read this screenshot, but I'll go over it anyway. I'm like 99% sure Ash said lol in response to this comment because it was phrased as a joke, it looks like a joke, it doesn't look like a genuine question, and there's no tone indicator. I don't know when this is from because the date marker just says 2 minutes ago, but it would likely be safe to assume that this comment was made before Ash was made fully aware that people were genuinely upset with her actions. She did not take it seriously because she probably could not have known she was supposed to, but without further context, we can't come to a conclusion. For this one, I'm not even sure of the context, and we can't hold her accountable for something we don't understand. There could be literally any reason Ash randomly said blackface. The other person could have said literally anything to initiate Ash's response. Without knowing what the other person said, we cannot hold her accountable because we do not know what happened. The claim that Ash was being racist here does not make sense because this entire conversation was just so random from the looks of things. Also, it's being claimed that she was suggesting to use Nutella as blackface because it's thicker, but you can clearly tell that she said blackface after talking about the thick Nutella. Either way, again, no context, no comment. Also, she's not British? I don't understand this one. You're mad that Ash said the word racist? Huh? Is it because she acted like it was a joke? Sure, maybe she shouldn't be seeing racism as a joke, but it was just one instance, and there could be more to this that we're not seeing? I do not know. I'm just not sure of anything with the screenshot specifically. Actually, looking through, lots of these screenshots seem to lack context, so I can't form a full opinion and make a statement. This one is silly. I joke about slurs all the time with my friends. The word slurs is funny to some people. Really not sure why it's an issue. Are you mad that your sense of humor is different? It wasn't even a whole slur, it was just a gif of a cat with the caption slurs. I do not understand. Silly, I say. This screenshot was provided by Poopy Butthole with extremely squashed and crusty quality. Because of the quality of the screenshot, it appeared to look much more recent than the screenshot actually was because you couldn't read the date. Anyway, I went hunting for the original screenshot quality, so here's that. It's from 2019. Since it's so old and it was clearly taken a long time ago since the username and profile picture are so ancient, surely Ash has addressed this, right? Actually, yes, here's a screenshot from an entire Google Doc she made addressing her previous actions she made public 9 months ago. I'm not sure why we're bringing up something she addressed so long ago and apologized for. I'll link the Google Doc in the description. Please stop claiming she hasn't addressed these actions. Just to be clear though, saying the N-word was not okay and will never be okay. There is no justification for a white person to be using the N-word ever, especially not with the hard R. However, this happened a very long time ago now, and she has clearly improved her behavior and not done this since, backed up by the fact that there's no recent screenshot of Ash actually using the N-word. She has apologized and very clearly moved on to fix her behavior. Honestly, if you still want to hold her accountable and you choose not to forgive her, that's absolutely fine. You are 100% entitled to choose to no longer support her. but you can't force your opinion onto the black people who have chosen to forgive her, and you shouldn't pretend that all this happened more recently than it did. You shouldn't make up a false narrative to get people to believe she never addressed her actions. Several people are claiming that she never ever said a word about what she did, but she has addressed almost all of her wrongdoings. Frankly, you would know this if you bothered to do a molecule of research and actually looked into what she was doing. If you're going to hold her accountable, make sure you're actually doing research to see if what you believe and are saying is actually accurate. This screenshot doesn't contain a slur, but I actually want to talk about it anyway. This was used to suggest that Ash was, quote, anti-black now. I got clarification on this, and basically what happened without the context is Ash said, I am anti-black now, because one of her comments on her Gambino meme said, of course you're anti-black, or something along those lines. She sent a screenshot of that comment in the group chat and said that she guesses she is anti-black now, as a sarcastic reply to that comment. She did not mean that message genuinely. None of this excuses her Gambino meme, which I will get into now. Back in 2020, she released her most recent remake of the Gambino animation meme. In the lyrics for the song used, the N-word is present, and when Ash animated the Gambino meme, she typed out all the lyrics in the background of her animation, including the N-word. She did make an attempt to censor it, but the attempt was extremely poorly received. This is because all she did in that attempt to censor the word is cut out a single letter, replacing it with an asterisk. Aside from cutting out that letter, the word is still completely visible. Ash has apologized for this and addressed it in the Google Doc I mentioned earlier, and I'll show that portion of it now. Since posting this apology, she has taken the video down, and if you were to grab the link to find it, you can see an edited version, one where she completely blurred out the word, erasing its visibility in the animation entirely. Ash should not have typed this word out, nor should she have kept the video up as long as she did, ignoring black voices telling her what she did was wrong. She has by now addressed and apologized for her mistake, and she hasn't done something like this since. She no longer stands by what she did back then, and that's evident. Once again, you are completely entitled not to forgive her. Just keep everything in mind when talking about this or telling other people. Her apology doesn't just automatically make everything right, but her actions since then have hopefully shown that she has changed and no longer does what she did. I'm also seeing some claims that the Gambino meme was released earlier this year, which, no? Ash has released the Gambino meme several times, but the one everyone's bringing up was released in early 2020, not anytime this or even last year. Not sure I need to clarify this, but I'm bringing it up anyway just in case. I'm not finding any more racism screenshots, so conclusion for this section. Many screenshots that paint Ash as a racist are extremely cropped and lacking context, if they're even real at all, and so without the context of most of these screenshots, we aren't capable of forming a full informed opinion. Stop using screenshots as evidence if you don't know the context, because they might not actually back up what you're claiming. For the ones that are real, Ash has talked about and explained as well as changed her negative beliefs. She no longer holds most of these opinions and has apologized, but if you aren't black, please don't attempt to forgive her. It's not your place with this section. Also, note from Ash, you really have no obligation to be forgiving me. I want it to be apparent that what I did in the past is something I want to leave in the past and grow up from. And despite this, it still will leave an effect on people, and that's not okay. If I have affected you personally with this, I strongly advise you to leave my content and me, as I don't want to upset you whenever I post. It's the opposite of what I want, and you don't deserve to feel this way. Another but little less necessary note, I had been told that the other side were using the fact I am only friends with one black friend as a point. To that I will say, why do you believe this? I have tons of black plus POC friends, and I really don't see why you would assume this, because you don't know me or my friend circle. You are also assuming that the people I've been public with are just automatically white? I've only made a couple of my friendships public compared to all of them, and I can tell you I have a giant variety of pals. Asian fetishization. Sticking this here because it ties into the whole racism thing I just discussed. Ash has been known to include Asian themes in her artwork for a very long time. The oldest instances that come to mind are from when she added kanji and Korean in the background of her art, but she's also included Asian outfits and even naming her characters using Asian names. Let's discuss. Something that was commonly seen in Ash's artwork around 2020 is she actively put kanji and Korean text in the background of her work as a detail, perhaps to aestheticize the piece. This is a problem because Asian voices in the art community have talked about their language and culture being turned into an aesthetic being a problem. When you use a part of a culture that isn't yours in your art without understanding the meaning and background of that piece of culture, you can very easily actively erase the nuances and details of that culture by accident. As I am not Asian, I will not speak further on this matter or give an opinion, but I will link a video by October K in the description that makes a lot of very important points. Now, this is something Ash hasn't done in a very long time. The oldest instance of this I can find is from March 2020, almost 2 years ago. However, this doesn't excuse her actions if she hasn't addressed it, so I've asked for comment. She did this because she saw pretty much every artist around her doing the same thing. She didn't know how offensive it was to be doing this at the time, but when she saw her mutuals talking about how appropriative it was, she just stopped doing this. She also says she never addressed it because she essentially just forgot about it, so I suppose this video does that much good. At one point, around late 2020 or maybe early 2021, Ash began using the name Atsuko for herself in online spaces. This originally began because she created a pink fluffy character and gave her the name Atsuko, and due to the nature of the character and the name, Ash became very attached and Atsuko quickly became a Sona. Something very common in furry spaces is people will go by the names of their persona characters they create, and Ash did this as well. The problem here was that Asian names have been used by white people for years to appropriate Asian culture into something that it's not, in order to fetishize and aestheticize culture. When Ash was made aware of the issue surrounding this name, she completely stopped going by it and addressed it in the Google document I've mentioned earlier. According to Ash's own words, she never used the name to fetishize or romanticize the culture. She used it because she connected greatly with the name's meaning, and since in that region the meaning of a name can be very important, she thought it fit her. This does not excuse her actions, however, and she has acknowledged that. She apologized directly to the Asian community in her audience and no longer uses the alias. If you are not Asian, you are not in a place to forgive or deny this part of the apology. Please keep that in mind. Now, I have been made aware that she still uses the username @Sukix on several accounts. I will not comment on this part as it is not my place, but here is Ash's explanation. If anyone affected by this is watching, I encourage leaving a comment here or DMing Ash to explain your views to help educate both of us. No pressure, though. As for her recent use of a sailor outfit, Ash is the one who wrote most of this, so I'll just read it out loud. Another issue, small but worth mentioning, a part of Ash quote-unquote educating Asian culture, was that Ash drew her character in a sailor outfit originating from United Kingdom. It's commonly seen as a cosplay item. This isn't exactly an issue as it isn't appropriating Asian culture like people are claiming. Definition: cultural appropriation is the inappropriate or unacknowledged adoption of an element or elements of one culture or identity by members of another culture or identity. This can be controversial when members of a dominant culture appropriate from minority cultures. The idea was taken from scaled-down sailor suits worn by children coming from royal European families. It was relatively easy to sew and thus was easily adopted in the country. Longer explanation. The sailor fuku is a common style of uniform worn by female middle school students, traditionally by high school students, and occasionally elementary school students. It was introduced as a school uniform in 1920 in Hyeonjogakuen, I apologize if I pronounced that wrong, and 1921 by the principal of Fukuoka Jogakuen University. I again apologize if I pronounced that wrong. It was modeled after the uniform used by British Royal Navy at the time, which Lee had experienced as an exchange student in the United Kingdom. Unlike something like a white person wearing sacred clothing just for the fun of it, a sailor outfit being worn is nowhere at all disrespectful. It's tiring seeing white people talk over Asians, saying what's right and what's wrong, when in reality this isn't your place to talk and you end up looking stupid. TLDR, the stereotypical Japanese uniform popularized in anime and games, sailor outfits is not a culture-related thing, let alone originating from Japan. If this was a genuine issue, you'd see artists cancelled left and right. I won't comment further on this as I don't fully understand, I think, and I don't want to get something wrong, but there is Ash's explanation. As usual, you are free to your own opinion, but always remember to do research when forming that opinion. Conclusion for this section. Ash has stopped using the alias Atsuko as well as other culturally appropriative actions when she was made aware of the poor reception of how it could be perceived and has apologized. Fatphobia. This one makes no sense. The common issue perceived with Ash's fatphobia right now is due to her first ever chubby OC, Annabelle, being a cow. To an extent, I honestly sort of understand where people are coming from. Having only one fat OC and that OC being a stereotype of what fat people actively get called, yes, I can actually kind of see their point. In the same vein, however, I'm also seeing mounds and mounds of chubby people saying that this OC is cute, that a fat cow is an adorable idea, and that the people saying she's mocking fat people are being sensitive. The argument is very split. Currently, from what I'm seeing, the majority tends to be in favor of Annabelle being chubby, and the loudest voices in that favor also happen to be chubby, so until further comment comes out to Ash, there seems to be very little problem with Annabelle being a fat OC. Now, when Annabelle was first made, Ash did end up drawing the character as skinny one time. Well, congratulations, you've confused me. You took issue with Ash drawing her new cow OC as chubby because fat people are called cows as an insult, but then once she draws the character as skinny, you again take offense? What? What would she prefer? Do you want Annabelle to be chubby or do you want her to be skinny? Help? What do you want from her? Aside from that, when she did draw that OC as skinny, it was literally just to test body types. She liked the OC's design and wanted to draw her in a warm-up sketch, but she wasn't too knowledgeable in drawing chubby bodies yet, so she drew her as more skinny. She didn't just randomly change her body type forever. Note from Ash, if this was meant to be in a demeaning and insulting manner against fat people, then I would have made hate art with her, no? If I genuinely thought fat people were just cows, then why would I make her part of my OCs and draw her a lot? While making her this wasn't in my mind whatsoever, I'm sorry if you are offended, but this really wasn't my intention, and I cannot apologize for something you perceive is bad, because no, it isn't, and never was. There are also several screenshots, including this one, that show Ash referring to her friends and boyfriend as fat, saying several times that they're fat and obese and large, etc. When I asked Ash about this, she explained how she called her friend's ex-boyfriend fat as a pet name because they thought it was cute. It was never meant to be fatphobic or to insult or fetishize fat people. They just genuinely thought the pet name was cute. I don't see how this is fatphobic. Conclusion for this section. Ash's chubby cow OC isn't really a problem, you're just sensitive. She's never made a post with flat-out fatphobic intentions, but regardless, she will be taking more care with what she says in the future. Sexualization. Ash has been accused of sexualizing her minor OCs and making pornographic work of those minor OCs. Ash does not have a single minor OC. Her main OC, Ashley, is ages, and when she's drawn, she doesn't have a specific age in mind. This means that Ashley is not a minor. This also applies to all of her other OCs. Note from Ash, a thing about this is her earlier design when she was 18 or 19, I forgot, and there's a graph to this day. I then eventually made her ageless along with my other OCs because I don't see them this way. They aren't mentally children or physically, and at no point were they underage. In recent times, whenever I draw Ash, she usually has a big bust and reformed IDK, if this is the right word, anatomy, unless I'm drawing her chibi or in baggy clothing. I didn't know anatomy back then, so she was pretty blocky and androgynous. However, her body type very much isn't one of a child's. I've seen several screenshots of people accusing Ash of making her OC, quote, child-coded, which I don't really believe. Ashley has fully developed breasts and adult features present throughout her entire body. She just happens to be extremely short, which a lot of characters are. Also, according to Ash, she's not as short as she was in 2019. If you want to make the claim that she looks too chibi-esque, that's because Ash's art style is extremely cutesy and chibi. There's no depiction of Ashley that can outright be determined to intentionally display a minor. Even if there was, again, Ash has stated several times that Ashley is ageless. Now, there has been this screenshot used to claim that Ash said Ashley is a minor, and guess what? It's fake. I checked. You're welcome. As for the sexualization, Ash has admitted to making some suggestive art, for example, Ashley depicted in lingerie and underwear, but never once has it been made for sexual intentions. In the screenshot, she says that she views this type of content as 16 plus as it's not straight up porn. Ash hasn't made sexual art since 2019, since she feels traumatized by what happened back then, so it's unreasonable to believe that she created her art in an attempt to be sexual. We are both aware that there is porn being created to imitate her art style and make it look like she drew porn of her characters, which I will not be showing because ew, but Ash did not draw that herself. She's expressed disgust with those who create porn in that way, and neither of us encourage people to continue with that art. Even with this in mind, if we pretend that Ash did create pornographic art of her character, she still would not be causing a problem as long as it's entirely private. Ashley, as I've stated, is ageless, so she does not have a canon age, meaning that she is not a minor, and Ash hasn't shown that art to any of her minor audience. You cannot find anywhere that Ash has posted that art publicly because she knows that her audience consists of mounds and mounds of children, and she is actively choosing not to show that porn to that audience of children. Note from Ash, the two instances where I drew lingerie and underwear were again not in a sexual manner. I find that clothing beautiful and it was done entirely for the clothing. I haven't drawn lingerie in a while, and the instance I did, I believe the 50K drawing on Twitter, was not in a sexual/suggestive pose. Conclusion for this section. Ash is not sexualizing her OCs. Her art was never made to sexualize Ashley or any of her other OCs. Frankly, you're gross for thinking that way. Proshipping. I had no clue where to stick this part because it came out in the middle of scripting, but Ash asked me to include this part specifically, which I understand because proshipping is nasty. Proshipping, according to Google, is one who supports a ship or shipping deemed problematic, e.g. due to incest, age differences, abusive dynamics, etc., and/or believes in the freedom to create and consume fan works with such elements. This is a problem because of the way fiction can affect reality, especially when consumed by minors. If fictional abusive or problematic relationships are seen so often in media, it can begin to blur the line between right and wrong, and it may cause people in real life to seek out abusive relationships because they like the way the dynamic is portrayed in fiction. This canon will cause people harm, so proshipping is rightly viewed as disgusting in almost every community. This is a very simplified explanation, and I will link better resources in the description regarding this topic. Now, Ash has been seen following an account that is self-proclaimed problematic, which is essentially code word for proshipping, as seen in the screenshot here. Ash has explained this to me here. Ash isn't a pro-shipper and she finds that stuff to be disgusting. The chances are, with that account specifically, the artist posted safe for work art that ended up on her Twitter timeline, and she followed them without checking their bio or anything else. She doesn't check bios, and recently she's just stopped following anyone as she only goes on Twitter nowadays to post. And no, she didn't know the characters were siblings or that the art shown was problematic. She knows nothing about Genshin Impact. The only reason she's drawn it is because one of her friends is very invested into the game, and she's drawn that art as a form of an art trade. As for the rest of these accounts, Ash said it was pretty much the same story. They posted safe for work art at some point, and Ash followed without looking at their bios. She's unfollowed the accounts marked with an SFW. Just, please, contact her if you see that she's following someone bad. She didn't add that DM me if I'm following someone problematic for damage control. She genuinely wants to make sure she's following decent people. It's not impossible for someone to accidentally follow someone problematic. Conclusion for this section. Ash is not a pro-shipper and she doesn't support pro-shipping. She doesn't always realize when she's following someone problematic and is actively making changes to make sure she doesn't interact with stuff like that. Also, stop claiming it's damage control, it's annoying. She may genuinely be changing because she is realizing that she's doing or following someone wrong, and changing her behavior isn't always just for damage control. Sorry, ramble. DDLG. Stop, 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 stop. Ash's old art from 2019 is being brought up again. I won't comment on my thoughts on the DDLG kink, but I have to go over this, don't I? This has been explained before in Ponder's Rocket's video, so if you need a more detailed explanation, check the link in the description. But basically, Ash and her ex-boyfriend engaged in the DDLG kink back in around 2019 and 2020. People are taking an issue with this because they're under the impression that DDLG promotes pedophilia, and they're using it as a point to cancel Ash. Ash no longer engages with the DDLG kink. She says that roped her into it, and she now feels sick thinking about that and the partner. Please stop bringing it up, it's old and gross. Note from Ash. I'm not going too much in my personal life because again, it's not the public's business, but when my ex introduced me to the DDLG lifestyle, I found it more of a comforting/sensory thing because my home life was not so good and I felt it as an escape. It's something I have been interested in for a long time, mostly because I don't feel comfortable anymore being involved in that stuff. I've had better coping mechanisms. My sex life was never anyone's business, and nobody wants to hear about a 12, 13-year-old's relationship with their equally young partner. Not only this, but I want to bring up something Ponder Sprocket mentioned in her video. She went into depth about how when a submissive party in a relationship views their significant other as larger and protective of them, they will often express this through exaggerating the heights of the characters depicted in art. This could have been Ash seeing her boyfriend as larger and more protective and caring, and thus the exaggerated art style. If you do not believe this because, say, she appeared much, much shorter than her ex, keep in mind that Ash was not as experienced at art then as she is now. This likely caused the exaggeration to be and appear much bigger than Ash intended, but she did not know how to fix it, so it came out looking the way it did. Artists aren't always perfect. You've got to give her some wiggle room with her style and portrayal. Conclusion for this section. Stop! Dream. This section is relatively short. From what I'm gathering, Ash made a poorly received tweet when she was uninformed about the situation of Dream possibly being a groomer. She posted this because all she knew at the time was that Dream made a Minecraft sex mod, and people seemed to be calling him out because he made something funny as a joke. She did not make this tweet informed about the actual situation and evidence against Dream. All she knew is that he made a joke and she thought it was funny and dumb. Since then, when I reached out about this, she's seen additional evidence and proof and made a follow-up statement after I encouraged her to say something on that account. Here's her apology and follow-up statement. Conclusion for this section. Ash made a poorly thought-out tweet regarding a situation she did not know anything about, and has since apologized, explaining her actions. She chooses not to comment further. GoatCatto! I wrote out a few things regarding GoatCatto and his videos on the situation, but I realized that without context it might not make much sense. I'm not particularly in the mood to download his videos and edit all of the parts I want to comment on into this, so what's most likely is I'm either going to make a comment on their videos or make a community post with timestamps of everything I'm commenting on for easy organization. A lot of his points were decent, but there are a few things I want to clear up that were muddy, and I just want everything to be transparent. Miscellaneous. I'm aware that I likely missed a lot of information or possibly skimmed over important parts, and for that I apologize. Making this video was hard, and it took me way too long to finish. This is around 20 pages, and the first draft was 35 pages. There's a lot I had to talk about here. All in all, don't harass Ash, Poopy Butthole, or anyone else I mentioned, even Alex. No matter what your opinion on anyone is, harassment is never appropriate, okay, or encouraged. This includes spamming or bombing anyone's comment section. I've seen how overboard some of you are going on both Poopy Butthole and Ash's comments, and no one is in the right for that. It is not that hard to be respectful. From here on out, I expect you to actually think the next time you hear dirt on someone. Talk to the person who the allegations are against. Get the full story. Just please stop believing stuff at face value. I also will not be making a follow-up video. If you have any questions or hear something new about what happened, feel free to talk to me or Ash directly. If you have different opinions, be respectful. And if you don't want to forgive Ash for what she has done, that's entirely your right. As long as misinformation and fake screenshots stop being spread, I won't be upset at anyone for having differing opinions. I also want to bring up something one of Ash's friends said about this earlier. It's a little bit of a ramble, but I think it might be important to talk about. I give them heavy credit for talking about this the way they did, because it put a lot of things into perspective for me. A lot of the drama on Ash is just because she's popular. I understand not making videos on people who are being toxic online if they're not widely known, because they're not making a huge impact on a bunch of people, but this applies in a lot of different cases. For example, a celebrity could say any mundane thing in an interview, but get headlines and such about it just because they're a celebrity. No one cares if some random person has cereal, but a celebrity like Ariana Grande could eat sushi for lunch and make multiple news articles just because she's popular. I think the same thing is happening with Ash. She's doing some little things or saying small things, but everything gets blown up way out of proportion because she has a large audience. It's people watching their every move and amateurly analyzing all of it because they have way too much time, just because they're bored. Ash doesn't have a motive to lie to her fans either, given her history. She's given up a lot of her privacy to dispel false narratives made about her, and people will still claim that she's doing everything for damage control or making stuff up to look better. If I had it my way, she'd just be some teenager who posts art on the internet, but so many people care way too much just because lots of people like her art. I would say from here on to take everything spread in the form of drama with a layer of skepticism. Not everything is true, and information can easily be watered down. That's all I really have to say. The entire situation just makes me incredibly sad looking back. I hope things end up better after this video. I'm just tired of seeing all this happen to Ash year after year. Just give the girl a break. Quick edit! I wanted to address something I saw when Ash released a bunch of our DMs. She got permission, don't worry. Explaining and defending her actions. This one part where she said that the only thing she felt apologetic for was the dream situation got taken out of context, and I wanted to explain it real quick. Literally right after she said this, she said she regretted a lot, for example the Gambino situation, so it would be very easy to conclude that she only meant she felt the need to say something about the dream situation now, and that everything else was old or disproven dirt. She's apologized several times before for the stuff I went over in this video. While we were talking, I had just immediately assumed it was a poor choice of wording, and that was that. Please stop nitpicking. Neither of us expected we needed to release those walls of text anyway, or clearly we would have phrased everything better.